If there's one ski resort that's moved into the spotlight more than any other over the past few months, it might be Cortina d'Ampezzo. This Italian Dolomiti resort stands out for its towering rock-formed footprint, sense of scale across several valleys, and character-laden town. But the resort has especially found itself getting eyes this winter thanks to its status as the co-host of the 2026 Winter Olympics, with a substantial number of alpine events occurring right on site. So what exactly makes Cortina such an Olympic-worthy ski venue? Well, in this video, we'll go through Cortina d'Ampezzo's overall mountain experience, and then we'll go through how it stacks up in our European rankings. Let's jump right into it. Perhaps more than anything else, Cortina stands out for its aesthetic. The scenery is nothing short of spectacular. Skiing or riding Cortina puts you right up against towering Dolomite rock faces, and much closer than at most other Dolomiti Superski resorts. These vertical walls frame the pistes and create some of the most dramatic mountain views you'll ever ski or ride. In addition, their topographical characteristics make for some of the most unique ski slopes one can find in the world. Italy's ski resorts are known for their restaurants, and in this respect, Cortina certainly does not disappoint. Across the entire area, you'll find plenty of options for a long lunch or a quick espresso, and the food quality and atmosphere are reliably excellent. At most restaurants, prices aren't too bad either. There are coffee shops at most of the base lifts if you need your caffeine fix before getting on the mountain. But some Cortina lodges are better than others, and if you're looking for a true standout place to stop in for a break, the Ravale Hut on Tofana is a must-hit. This restaurant offers extraordinary views from its deck thanks in large part to sitting on top of a dramatic rock tower, and it's perched so high over the slopes that you can look directly down onto some of them. You also get some phenomenal views of the town of Cortina d'Ampezzo itself. But if you can make it over to the backside, the Lagazuoi refuge might be even better. This is the largest and highest hut in the entire Cortina region, and with that, you get a terrace with plenty of space and some of the most jaw-dropping views in the entirety of the Dolomites, including several iconic Dolomiti peaks that are dozens of miles away. You can even reserve a private sauna visit while you're up there, which, of course, comes with views out into the mountains. As a resort within the larger Dolomiti Superski complex, it is up to some interpretation as to which parts of the resort should truly be considered part of the Cortina footprint. But for the purposes of this video, we are considering Cortina to have two distinct regions, Tofana and Faloria, that are each continuously lift-served but not connected to one another. This complex boasts approximately 3,000 acres of skiable terrain across its, let's call it, disjointed layout. Tofana is the primary side of the resort, and it spreads out into multiple terrain pods with something for just about every ability level. Groomed cruisers dominate the lower and mid-mountain areas, while upper sections deliver steeper pitches and spectacular views. The top section of this part of the resort, known as Ravales, is perched above a dramatic rock face and heavily isolated from other areas of the resort. When conditions allow, guests can ski or ride over 5,000 feet from the top of this area into town. Tofana also hides a faraway backside. A 15-minute skyline gondola ride leads to the Cinque Torre and Falzarego Lagazuoi zones. These outlying areas feel quieter and more remote than those closer to town, and they offer sweeping vistas of faraway parts of the Dolomites. Combined, this continuous lift-served area offers access to about 84% of Cortina's terrain. Faloria, which sits on the other side of town from Tofana, skews more technical and big mountain in character, although it's not nearly as big or tall as Tofana. From town, the only way up to the slopes is via a dramatic two-stage cable car in a unique pulse setup, where the upper car reaches the mid-station at the same time the lower car arrives. Faloria's pistes then extend down the full vertical of the resort over to the other side of the valley. This setup means that directly from the town of Cortina, you actually can't see the slopes of Faloria at all. In addition, you also have to download the cable car at the end of the day if you want to go directly back to town without taking a shuttle bus. Despite the shorter overall vertical, Faloria's runs are longer and more sustained in pitch than at much of Tofana, with a rugged feel and some excellent off-piste lines directly off the lifts. Overall, the terrain just feels a bit more serious than at much of Tofana. Faloria also has its own backside, known as Cristallo, that you can only access by skiing or riding down to the road, crossing it by foot, and going up another set of lifts. Isn't all this quite simple? A free shuttle bus is the only way to move between the Tofana and Faloria areas, so you'll need to plan your day accordingly if you want to ski both, and especially if you want to throw in the backsides of one or both resorts in too. But if you have multiple days in the region, you should have no problem hitting most of the terrain involved. When it comes to beginner options, they exist at Cortina, but as one might expect from an Olympic caliber mountain, they're not the main draw. The steep, dramatic landscape limits truly mellow runs across many parts of the resort, and first-timers may find it tricky to move between areas without tackling at least some intermediate terrain. Less experienced guests will probably want to stick to the Tofana side. This part of the resort has some strong beginner-level blue pistes within lower elevations, and the isolated Torri area offers some nice higher elevation blue runs as well. The Raw Valleys area has a couple of blue runs too, which does notably make this stunning area accessible for beginners, but they are limited and they're not accessible from the top of the main lift. Blue trails on the Faloria side are substantially more limited. For true first-timers, there is a bunny hill located near the Socrepes base on the Tofana side. Guests who have made it to intermediate proficiency unlock the bulk of Cortina's terrain. The Tofana side's modestly steep mid-mountain makes for some great red-rated cruiser runs, with the Pomedes area and the entire Faloria side home to a chock full of runs of this level. These runs are tailor-made for big sweeping turns, and they do a good job of showcasing why Cortina has a reputation for world-class carving terrain. It is worth noting that the reds on the Faloria side do run a bit steeper than those on Tofana, so if you're progressing to reds from the blues, it's probably a good idea to test your comfort on the Tofana side first. The red rating is also where guests will start to get access to some of Cortina's truly iconic runs, especially in the most remote areas. The Cristallo side is home to the Rio Gere Trail, which navigates several prominent rock walls while offering direct views of the beautiful front side of Faloria, while the Croda Negra, Lagazuoi, and Armentarola pistes at Torri and Lagazuoi offer astonishing vistas of the surrounding Dolomites while being boxed in by even more pronounced rock faces than those at Rio Gere. It is worth noting that the Armentarola Trail ends way out of the way of any lift in the Cortina complex, and to get back to that footprint, you'll need to take a bus or taxi, although you can alternatively decide to pay €4 for a literal horse-drawn lift ride over to the Alta Badia ski resort. Despite the logistical complications, the Armentarola run might be the most beautiful piste within the entire Cortina d'Ampezzo Dominion. It's also worth noting that the latter three of these signature runs are part of an official ski tour route called Super 8, which provides access to all three of them across an 8-shaped loop. Also, these runs are among the longest in Italy, so be sure to come prepared for the long descent. Despite its Olympic bona fides, freestyle skiers won't find much at Cortina. Park features are minimal and not a priority, so those looking for jumps and rails will want to look elsewhere in the Dolomiti Superski network, let alone the greater European Alps. When it comes to advanced and expert on-piste runs, Cortina has some truly incredible terrain, even if they aren't as extensively available as the resort's reds. Both Tofana and Faloria feature black-rated pistes only on their front sides, but they are notably sustained. Most of these trails boast longer descent lengths than those at many other Dolomiti Superski areas, and the fall lines are quite consistent. But while most of the blacks exist on the Faloria side, experienced Cortina visitors will not want to leave without checking out the black number 51 Forcella Rosa piste, a steep gem of a trail that plunges down the face of the Raw Valleys Massif. This is the only way down from the Raw Valleys area without downloading the tram, and once you get a sense of just how steep of a rock wall you are descending across while taking this run, you'll understand exactly why. But when conditions allow, Cortina might stand out more than anything for advanced and expert skiers and riders for its off-piste terrain. On the Tofana side, there are various areas to venture off the marked runs and hit unmaintained mountain slopes, with opportunities for chutes, cliffs, and other technical features most present in Raw Valleys and Torri. These features are not marked, and they should be properly scoped out before attempting. Torri also offers opportunities for off-piste skiing through rather interesting rock gardens. However, Faloria in particular is where you'll want to be for lifts served off-piste. Several chutes and natural lines start right off the lifts, and the side country has the kind of technical, big mountain feel you'd normally expect in far more remote terrain. But despite some incredible terrain, Cortina is not actually that popular for off-piste, and it's common for snow to stay untracked for days even if it hasn't snowed recently. This all being said, even if you venture just out of the bounds of a close-by slope, the off-piste in Cortina d'Ampezzo is true backcountry terrain, and there is no maintenance for avalanches or other hazards. This means you are on your own to assess the safety of the conditions. If you're planning to access this type of terrain, we strongly recommend you bring proper backcountry equipment, including a beacon, shovel, and probe, and if you're not familiar with this region or any of that equipment, it's a good idea to hire a guide as well. When it comes to snow quality, Cortina's upper mountain is among the best in the Dolomites. While the region doesn't typically match the snowfall of the Western Alps, the higher elevations and northern aspects in key areas help preserve quality snow when other superski areas start to soften. The resort also employs extensive snowmaking to keep slopes in good shape, even when Mother Nature doesn't cooperate. However, Cortina's natural snow preservation in its highest elevation areas doesn't translate to all of its slopes. The bulk of the Tofana front side faces east, and lower mountain snow retention is, let's say, fickle. Cinque Torre and frontside Faloria slopes mostly face north, which helps with reliability in those areas, but on the other hand, the main slope on the Cristallo backside faces directly south, and if it's been a bad snow year, it's not uncommon to see the ground outside the run itself completely bare. Pistes in lower mountain areas are often closed due to a lack of snow cover, and guests may find themselves needing to download a lift to fully exit the resort when it wouldn't normally be needed under good conditions. As a result, just like with most Italian ski resorts, if a truly reliable snowshoe vacation is your priority, especially if you value off-piste or fully skiable value runs, other destinations may be slightly better choices. As a whole, Cortina's lift network is modern and generally efficient, though there are some quirks. In resort areas closest to the town of Cortina, lifts are high speed, and as of 2025, state-of-the-art 10-passenger gondolas provide access out of both Tofana frontside bases. And if you head over to the Cristallo side, the main chair serving that terrain is one of the coolest designed lifts we've ever seen, with bubbles that look like something resembling spaceship pods. However, some lifts in less prominent areas, especially over on the Cinque Torre side, are slow, fixed-grip doubles and triples. In addition, the lifts over the most dramatic rock faces, specifically Lagazuoi, the second leg to Raw Valleys, and the ridge down to Cortina from Faloria, are all low-capacity cable cars. It is worth noting that when you're passing through to load the lifts, some RFID gates can be finicky, especially for Icon pass holders. This is a known issue, so be sure to wave down a resort worker if you're having issues with this. One other thing to be aware of, there are two notable out-of-service lifts within the Cortina complex. The Cima Tofana tram, which acts as a third stage from the Valleys tram but only operates during the summer, and the Forcella Staunese lift over at Cristallo, which historically served some of the greatest expert terrain at the resort, but closed about a decade ago with no replacement. Despite its fame, Cortina handles crowds reasonably well in most areas. The large footprint and multiple terrain pods help spread skiers and riders out. High traffic groomers can still get busy on peak weekends, but it is manageable compared with many other marquee European resorts. The one big exception to this rule is the Lagazuoi tram. This 50-person cable car, which provides access to the iconic restaurant and red pistes we discussed earlier, gets quite packed even on weekdays and is worth baking in at least half an hour to wait online at. The other trams can have some issues during peak times as well, but they're not as bad. When it comes to getting around Cortina, its disjointed and rock tower-filled layout makes for some interesting circumstances. If you're not venturing too far from a specific terrain pod, navigation isn't too bad thanks to what's in most places straightforward signage with clear lift directions. But when moving between resort areas, some issues start to pop up. One of the biggest annoyances involves getting to the Skyline Gondola, the lengthy lift that provides access to the Cinque Torre area from the Tofana front side. Now, we do have to give the resort credit where credit is due. This gondola provided the first lift-served link ever between Cinque Torre and Tofana when it was built in 2021, eliminating a lengthy bus ride needed to get between them and linking Cortina much more coherently with the broader Dolomiti Superski footprint. However, the loading area for this gondola is not the easiest to get to. Unless you're starting at the Socrepes base, the loading area is quite out of the way of much of the Tofana footprint, and for most areas of the resort, one has to ski or ride all the way down to this base to get to the terrain area that provides access to this lift. The new Socrepes gondola this year will probably address some of the signage confusions from last year's lift setup, but it's a bit more out of the way to get to the new loading area than the lift it replaced. In addition, if you can't ski black runs, moving from the Ravale terrain to the rest of the mountain can be tricky. It's not the most clear from the signs, but the only way out if you don't want to engage in a very steep run is to download the tram back to the lower mountain. But if you do want to take the advanced route down, the black number 51 trail itself is kind of hard to find, being located over the side of the ridge and a lot less prominent than returning to the quad lift, which looks intuitive to get down to the base, but you can't ski out of it and you'll have to ride up again. It's especially confusing because there is a trail indicator sign for this number 51 piece right after you get off the tram, but there's no directional signage at the intersection where the black actually diverges off from the number 49 blue run that returns to the quad. We imagine many people just can't find this run after that initial indicator, assume it's either not there or not open, and give up and download the tram. And this is unfortunate given how iconic this run really is. But with all the preparations for this winter's games going on, the big question you might be asking is there anything in particular that will change at Cortina specifically because of the 2026 Olympics? Well, the most tangible change is probably that 10-passenger gondola out of the Secrepes base, which replaces 2 quad chairs, one fixed grip and one detachable. But outside of that, the biggest update is the completion of the rebuilt Cortina sliding center for the bobsled, skeleton, and luge events, reviving a storied venue that had been dormant for years. While this facility does not directly alter the downhill experience, it's brought increased infrastructure investment to the broader resort footprint, including roadwork, signage improvements on the streets, and town-level upgrades aimed at handling Olympic-scale crowds. Outside of new infrastructure, skiers and riders visiting during the Olympic competition window should expect a notably different experience from a normal season. Portions of the Tofana side, including some of the most iconic competition slopes and the lifts that primarily serve them, will be out of service to public skiing while events are underway. However, this does not mean skiing in Cortina d'Ampezzo shuts down entirely. Large parts of the surrounding network, including Faloria, Cristallo, Torri, and Lagazuoi, are expected to remain mostly or fully open. It is worth noting that the Olympic spotlight is likely to bring increased visitation to Cortina, especially from international travelers who might not otherwise visit. This is already translated to much higher lodging demand for the upcoming winter, but is also likely to bring more crowded transport infrastructure and a generally busier town atmosphere than in a typical winter. On the flip side, visitors will probably benefit from improved shuttle operations, heightened service levels, and a more polished overall presentation as Cortina tries to put its best foot forward on a global stage. It's also worth noting that the incremental Olympic crowd will not automatically translate into heavy lift traffic, especially in sectors that are not hosting events, given that many of the excess visitors will be there specifically to spectate rather than to ski or ride. It's worth highlighting that Cortina is part of the broader Dolomiti Superski network, and as a result, it's included on general Dolomiti Superski ticket and pass products. The resort is also a partner on the Icon Pass, with 5 or 7 days of access shared with the rest of the Dolomiti Superski network, dependent on your level of pass. Cortina is not a part of the day ticket like Icon Session Pass. When it comes to getting to Cortina d'Ampezzo, the resort isn't quite as convenient as some destinations with direct rail connections. However, Cortina is easily reachable by car or bus from major northern Italian cities and airports. For most international travelers, the most convenient airport will be Venice, which is just over 2 hours away by car or bus. The resort is also about 3 hours from Innsbruck, Austria, and 4.5 hours from both Milan, Italy, and Munich, Germany. But public transportation is a lot less accessible from those cities. If you're not staying directly in the town of Cortina itself, public transportation to your accommodation is likely limited, and a car is highly recommended. If you do decide to drive, parking is generally available at all base areas and not a terrible headache, though arriving early on weekends is a good idea to make sure you have a spot. For those visiting Tofana, there's also preferred parking surprisingly far up the mountain near the base of the Tofana high-speed quad. But at this lot and the one providing access to Faloria from town, you have to pay to park. When it comes to lodging for Cortina, the first place that comes to mind is town. The town of Cortina d'Ampezzo offers a wide range of accommodations, from small family-run pensions to high-end hotels. Most of these accommodations are a short shuttle ride from the slopes, and you'll find plenty of classic Italian alpine character alongside modern creature comforts. However, you can also stay directly on the mountain if you value easy access to the slopes more than a walkable town. Several refugios offer accommodation either slopeside or quite a bit of the way up the mountain. The lodges on the mountain often can't be accessed by road, and they're offered with a cruise ship mentality, with meals and other amenities usually packaged in. When it comes to Après-Ski at Cortina, the scene leans classy but not all that rowdy. In addition to the on-mountain establishments where you can often go grab a casual drink on the slopes, you'll find lively cafes and nice restaurants in town, including some standout wine bars. In addition, the town is great to walk around in, with plenty of unique Italian charm, stores, art galleries, and museums. That said, don't come to Cortina expecting slopeside dance parties in the most extensive nightclub scene. Other resorts in France, Switzerland, and Austria will be better in that respect. So Cortina d'Ampezzo isn't the largest ski destination in Europe, at least if you're not including its discontinuous links to the broader Dolomiti Superski resort network, and it has a few quirks that may hurt its appeal for those who value a continuous footprint in the utmost in natural snow surety. But if you're looking for some of the world's most iconic grooms terrain and on-mountain restaurants and just a generally extraordinary backdrop throughout your vacation, you'll be hard-pressed to find a better option. One-day adult lift ticket prices range between 72 to 80 euros for just Cortina access, and they increase to between 77 to 86 euros for access to the full Dolomiti Superski network, which may be useful if you want to venture over to Alta Badia or another further away resort during your ski day. This makes Cortina comparably priced to many other marquee European resorts and substantially cheaper than most American destinations of this caliber. And of course, the resort is included for 5 to 7 days of access already, shared with the broader Dolomiti Superski footprint, if you happen to have a full Icon or Icon base pass. Now let's go through how Cortina d'Ampezzo stacks up in our European rankings, which are determined by the following 10 category mountain score. Since the greater Tofana complex and Faloria are physically separate areas, we've decided to score each of them individually. Cortina's snow retention is quite respectable for Italy, specifically in upper mountain areas, but competing mountains elsewhere in the Alps do see higher snow quantities, and the complex as a whole gets a 6 for snow. Cortina has an impressive snowmaking arsenal and generally gets most of its pistes open throughout a typical winter, but south-facing and lower mountain areas can be a lot more variable, and off-piste conditions are plainly hit or miss, and the complex gets a 6 for resiliency overall. When including both the frontside and Torri Lagazuoi, the general Tofana area spans approximately 2,500 skiable acres, while the Faloria complex is much smaller, only encompassing about 495 skiable acres from boundary piste to boundary piste, getting the Tofana complex a score of 8 for size and the Faloria complex a score of 3 in this category. Cortina as a whole has an incredibly unique selection of terrain, including some runs with exceptional vertical, although its pistes are probably more biased towards intermediates and those who like groomed terrain than everyone else, and the larger Tofana complex gets a 7 for terrain diversity, while the smaller and more advanced oriented Faloria area gets a 4 in this category. While its off-piste can be incredible under the right conditions, and there are some notable steeps, Cortina is not the most technical destination when it comes to its official pistes, and the resort gets a 6 for challenge on the Tofana side and a 7 on the Faloria side, which has steeper overall trails and more reliable lift-served off-piste. Cortina's lift network is generally modern close to town, but could use some upgrades in the more remote areas, and thanks to some recent improvements, the complex as a whole now gets a 7 for lifts. Cortina doesn't tend to get as packed as the worst ski resorts in the Alps, but congestion can be a serious problem in a few popular areas, most notably the Lagazuoi tram, and the queues come with the unorganized chaos typical of Italy. The resort gets a 6 for crowd flow on the Tofana side and an 8 on the less busy Faloria side. The Cortina d'Ampezzo complex is world-class when it comes to its on-mountain restaurant scene, thanks not only to its quantity, but sheer quality of food, an ambiance that makes some of the huts feel like destinations in and of themselves. The Tofana side gets our highest score of 10 for facilities, while the Faloria side, which doesn't have quite the same iconic scene, still gets an impressive 8. Cortina does have some quirks when it comes to getting between mountain pods, but the resort as a whole isn't too terrible to get around, and the Tofana complex gets a score of 5 for navigation, while the Faloria side, which is much harder to go wrong on, gets an 8 in this category. And finally, mountain aesthetic. Cortina d'Ampezzo provides a backdrop of some of the most beautiful skiing and riding in the world, with surrounding natural features one might be hard-pressed to find anywhere else. The Tofana side gets our highest score of 10, while the Faloria side gets a score of 9 in this category. These categories add up to an overall score of 71 for Cortina's greater Tofana complex and 66 on the Faloria side, placing them here against other European ski destinations. Cortina isn't as snowsure, big, or even challenging as the best in Europe, but it's really hard to beat for its unparalleled views and incredible restaurants. And while it does have some drawbacks in terms of a disjointed layout, it's still a lot more simple to get around than some of the worst offenders in Europe. All in all, if you're looking to knock off a bucket list destination from your roster, Cortina d'Ampezzo won't disappoint. If you were paying close attention to this video, you might have noticed a lot of the same people in the clips throughout it, and it turns out that's no accident, because you're seeing the jackets of none other than our PeakHouse Italy 2025 crew. And if shredding some of the most beautiful mountains in the world with an adventure-driven group looks fun to you, we're excited to still have a very small number of spots left for our PeakHouse Austria trip in just a couple of weeks. We'll be road tripping around some of the biggest and most snowshoe resorts in the Alps, including Hintertux, Meyerhofen, and Solden. And because we know how daunting the logistics of a Europe vacation can be for an outside traveler, we've coordinated full rental car transportation and groceries for our chalets. If you're looking for bigger mountain skiing than anything available in North America and one amazing crew to do it with, PeakHouse Austria is for you. For more information and to snag one of those few remaining spots, check out the link in the description below. If you found this information helpful, be sure to like and subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss any of our content. For more information on over 100 ski resorts around the world, check out peakrankings.com. Special thanks to our Peak patrons, and see you for the next one.